And we're going to have more discussions about the Unbeatable Mind practices, but box breathing is kind of core to it. And as you are probably well aware, although I'm going to keep repeating this, box breathing isn't just breathing. We're doing the breath work for a number of purposes. It's a stacked practice. So, at its most simplest level, we are doing arousal control. We are breathing and de-stressing and activating that parasympathetic nervous system and getting all the health benefits of that, slowing the breathing down and breathing through your nostrils. So balance of carbon dioxide, oxygen, all the health benefits of detoxification, all the benefits that come at a physical and a physiological level. But we're also developing our attention control, which is being very discreet with where we put our attention so we're not distracted all the time. Our mind isn't bouncing around like a ball. Because of our box breathing practice, we're able to bring our mind to whatever it is we want it to. And then the third thing we train is sustained concentration, the ability to hold our mind on what we want to for a long period of time. Now, those are pretty valuable skills. We train those. But then the fourth thing we train, we call mindful awareness, is the ability to, while we're doing what we're doing and we're holding our concentration, some other things will come up in the background of our mind. You might call the background of your mind the subconscious. There's different words for it. Kahneman calls it your system one mind. It's the stuff that's kind of like bubbles up, and we like to look at those bubbling up things as kind of patterns or loops, and oftentimes they're not very supportive or helpful. And oftentimes they aren't very courageous. Those patterns are the background of obviousness that are kind of ingrained in us from our childhood at a very early age, starting day one. And they're also the patterns that our families gift us, and our culture gifts us, our language gifts us. And so they're just kind of there. They're like the subroutines or the sub-programmings or the operating system that are, let's say we open up a Word doc in our mind to work on a project. Well, it's operating, that Word doc is functioning on the substrate of our operating system, which is our background of obviousness, to use a computer software metaphor. And the body is kind of like the hardware. And so mindful awareness is like, while I'm working on something, suddenly, I become aware, because I've been training in box breathing, that there's this pattern arising, and it might be a fear loop. And that fear loop looks like something like, oh wow, I've got this massive project. Here's a good example for me. Some of you know I just re-embarked on my path to get my PhD, which I left on the table when I went to Iraq in 2004. I was getting my doctorate in leadership, and when I came back, I decided not to continue it. I had almost all the coursework done. And so it's kind of been with me for a number of years. I'm like, someday I'm going to go back and finish it. And so I finally bit the bullet, and I started, actually this week. Well, guess what happened? A little fear loop starts. I'm like, wow, there's some conditioning here of like, can I do this? Do I have the time? And so I pay attention to that. I'm like, fear, even in me, right? So it's not like we can be the toughest person in the world and these things come up and it's still fear. It doesn't mean I'm afraid that the PhD is going to kill me. The fear is just a false expectation that appears real to me, or false evidence that appears real, right? So those are fun acronyms to like think about. What type of fears do we have, which are just false expectations, false evidences that are in our background of obviousness that hold us back or cause us to pause? Because I can tell you this, that loop is what prevented me from starting the PhD again until I was 58. I could have looked at that and said, you know what, screw that, that's false. And I could have started it 10 years ago, and I'd be long done by now. So you're probably thinking in your head right now, wow, I've got like 5 of those things, right? Or 2 or 3 things that I could have, should have, would have done, and now I wish I had done, but I haven't because of some sort of fear loop. So our practice, the fourth extraordinarily valuable thing that comes out of our Unbeatable Mind morning routine of courage, is to become mindfully aware of those loops, of that background of obviousness, and then to identify, and then like a surgeon, to cut out the patterns that don't serve us anymore.